Good afternoon, everyone. First and key disclosure, unlike my esteemed co-presenters here today, I am not a scientist, I am not a clinician, but I'm going to do my very best to represent a variety of perspectives and clinical applications in an accurate manner. So, pleasure being here. My name is Kara van Hove. I'm the CEO of Revelle Aesthetics. We're the makers of the Healthegy device. So we are a one-time minimally invasive treatment, FDA cleared for the long-term reduction of cellulite in the buttock as well as in the thigh area. And for everybody to know, cellulite being a big body concern that affects women as early as the post-puberty phase. But first, why should we all level up in our focus on body concerns? Because as all this data here suggests, that the last 2 decades of innovation have been so concentrated on the face, and so no surprise that women are now expanding their wishes for rejuvenation far below the neck to the rest of the body. And this sort of growing demand for an improved body aesthetics, it's also fueled now by the rise in all these medical weight loss treatments, a revolution that is really here to stay. So dissecting areas of the body that are becoming very popular, safe to say that the breast, the midriff area, very satisfied results, but it leaves the lower body pretty much entirely unsolved, yet very bothersome and quite complicated. So why are the lower extremities so complex for most of us women? Because generally it is a combination of 3 distinct issues. So we have the issue of cellulite, meaning any irregularity on the surface of the body that essentially has these defined edges that's present in the buttock as well as lateral in the posterior thigh. We have the issue of adiposity, so either volume deficits or volume gain in undesirable areas. And then there's the issue of skin laxity, or essentially loose skin. So in trying to solve for all these unmet needs in the lower body at Revelle, we have essentially channeled all of our efforts, all of our energy in the last few years on trying to tackle the cellulite part of it. And why? Because 90% of us women have it. So very high prevalence. But what I think is even more important is how bothered we are by all those dimples and divots and depressions. So if you look at this data, it shows that women are actually as bothered by it as much as they are by wrinkles on their faces. Cellulite always tops the charts in any body survey that gets conducted. And then even if we look at it in terms of numbers, US alone, 60 million women with cellulite. Obviously, you've got to factor in all the appropriate cuts, right? Which is, do they have the right BMI, affordability to treat, would they seek a medical provider? So, but that still brings us down to 6 million women. So, Healthegy was designed specifically to produce visible results for the reduction of cellulite, but do it in a way that would also allow the provider to give them reliable and reproducible results. So how did we achieve it? By first gaining quite a bit of an understanding of the complex underlying anatomy of cellulite. So back in 2018, when we started to look at the issue, we obviously first turned to the literature, and it really presents cellulite as a multifactorial issue, similar to acne. So you've got a thinning dermis, you've got fat cells that become larger, and then you have these fibrous bands or septa attaching the skin to the muscle layer. And it's also well documented in the literature that of all those factors, it's these bands, when they shrink or stiffen, they put physical tension on that surface of the skin, causing those divots or dimples or depressions. But what we also observed is, after a lot of sort of anatomical work and a lot of cadaver labs under endoscope, is that it's in fact these exact septa that are the most misunderstood, and that they are never these singular bands that are right perpendicular or right underneath a dimple. What you will find, even under the most benign-looking depression, you will find a complicated web, a 3D honeycomb structure type of fibrous septa that essentially are all in that superficial subdermal plane, but they also vary from region to region. So in a buttock, you'll find a radial web. In a posterior thigh, you generally tend to have a wall. So with that understanding, our engineers obviously concluded that if the key is to release that entire septal network, really what we should be doing is create a precision instrument that simply allows us to go underneath that skin, identify that whole web of septa, and just release it in a very precise manner, but allow for a verification of that release. So that's what makes Avely a one-time treatment. We do this procedure under local anesthesia, so it's great as a standalone in-office treatment, but it also can be added on to the OR because there is no system attached to it. So it is a single disposable, attractive economics, and not only is it an MD opportunity, but it's also a mid-level provider opportunity. But I want to go back to something that I've said in the beginning, which is when we're trying to solve for the lower body, you have to respect that it's really an assembly of distinct issues. And that, similar to the face, you have to apply a multidimensional assessment and a multimodality treatment approach, as beautifully articulated here by Dr. Amalfi. So we're super excited that with Avely, we now have an opportunity to unlock that formula to lower body rejuvenation with many of our providers first using Avely as a treatment for cellulite, but then essentially layer on other modalities that distinctly can solve for these other issues like laxity, volume gain, volume loss, either surgically or non-surgically. So to essentially kind of give relevance and give some visibility to what we're talking about, I'll show you kind of multidimensional approaches. We call it treat to complete. We've had now 5,500 Avely cases under our belt, so we've seen a lot of beautiful work. So first and foremost, this is a surgical case. This is a good example of where the surgeon's eye didn't stop at that waistline, so essentially it took a global assessment of that lower third of the body, and so applying essentially a combination of liposuction to really contour that waistline, and then essentially tightening that skin and adding a cellulite reduction treatment so you can see it's an overall strong appearance. This is an entire non-surgical case by essentially the magical Sarah Vbrook in the room at Dr. Johnny Franco's office. But again, this is a beautiful non-surgical combination where you can see artistic kind of shaping of that booty, but also just adding some nice athletic volume back, and then smoothing that skin with a cellulite treatment, and then tightening that kind of posterior leg. This is a case, again, a fantastic surgeon who doesn't settle for a standard result, didn't want to just do a tummy tuck 360, but also wanted to reshape kind of the shape of that leg, and also adding some cellulite treatment to kind of smooth out that skin and kind of reduce that dimpling or those divots. This is a non-surgical case, essentially combining Avely here with an energy-based device to really separately then tighten that skin after reducing or essentially smoothing those dimples. This is a case by Dr. Harrington. We call her the queen of thighs. Many of us women, unfortunately, have these deep divots in the lateral thighs. So you can see here, those were resolved with Avely with a one-time treatment, and then paired with some skin tightening here, in this case with a J-plasma. It doesn't always require a tool. This case is a nice, elegant fat grafting along with a reduction of the cellulite. And this is probably one of my favorite cases because we see them all the time, which is obviously now with the rise of all these weight loss treatments, you can see here that women kind of lose a substantial amount of weight, and that means also that we can lose weight in areas that are undesired, and generally that's the buttock region. So again, you can see sort of first a reduction of the cellulite, really kind of smoothing out those dimples or divots, and then sort of essentially adding back some volume to that booty with a biostimulator, in this case Sculptra and also Radius. And then the last case I wanted to add, because there's always a lot of sort of mystery around how to solve for sort of the posterior legs, if you will. But again, this is sort of a smoothing of those dimples, so treating the cellulite and then adding again sort of a skin tightening of that posterior thigh in both areas with, in this case, a Renuvion. So all that just to say, we're very excited to have the opportunity to address this hot topic of beauty below the belt, a topic obviously in which treating cellulite is a key part, and we're pleased to now with Avely have a strong head start on that. But really looking forward to hearing from my co-presenters now, and I'm sure you're going to hear a much richer clinical and a scientific perspective. So thank you for the time.